What's up, Squadron? Aviation has given me a ton of amazing experiences.
Good job there. Nice rock, high wing.
But more importantly, it's introduced me to a whole new family of friends.
Like, dude, you're killing it. You're having a great day.
So just never give up.
Airport, and then, oh, by the way, I got carb ice while I was flying through, so the engine started running rough, and I had to
Join us tonight as we're cleared direct for some hangar flying. I am Bryon Bowman, and this is SuperAero Live.
That's a lot. I mean, a lot of cookies. What's up, Av Geeks? It's Wednesday, which can only mean one thing. It's time for another episode of SuperAero Live. I missed you all last week. Didn't I take off I think it was last week. I took off. We did our Patreon Zoom chat thing, and that was still really dope. We weirdly got to watch Just Plain Silly, Brian Turner, and Eric Johnston, two great aviation YouTubers. We got to watch them drink beers and eat some wings because they tuned in to the Patreon thing from a bar, and it was great. And we tried to order them a romantic dessert, but by the time we got the order in, the kitchen was closed. That's a new thing. I bet they didn't know that. Yeah, we were scheming, guys. Anyway, I got to say hi to a couple people in the chat before we get started tonight. Oh, and people know what's going on. I'm seeing a lot of Tiberius in the chat. Seeing a lot of Tiberius in the chat. 782 Papa's here. James Hyatt's here. Jason Follas. Clucky is here. Jason Follas. Hanger Tails is here. Hanger Tails, I was hoping you'd be here. It's good to see you, Tom. Who else is in the chat there? We got the gang. Scarface, best name ever on the internet. Gary Smith, Zach Sherman. Maybe I said that already. Jonathan McCormick from 2 weeks ago in the chat talking about airplane painting. Now all I want to do is buy an airplane so he can paint it. That seemed like a lot of fun. Lost Local Host says, howdy. There is no cake, though. Sorry, Lost Local Host. No cake. Canyon K is here. Just Plain Silly's here. He says, Tiberius, I will never forget. That's right. Did I do a good job getting through all that? I want to introduce my guest tonight. You can hear him chuckling in the background there. Kind of a big deal in the Guinness Book of World Records. We're going to talk about that tonight. Look, everybody, Spencer Suderman is here.
Hey! How you doing, Ryan?
There he is. There he is, man. I'm so excited to have you. We've been talking about getting you on the show for a long time, and you guys famously, what do they call it? I think in Twitch with like the video games, they call it raiding a stream. You raided our stream one night after a stream. That was pretty cool.
It was a It was a conspiracy to attack. That was launched on Bryan's channel, Bryon with a Y, Just Plain Silly. Mm-hmm. You know the story behind that? Do you know how that actually came about?
I think you sent me a clip.
I did. That's where it started. Yeah, Bryon is not a Trekkie. He's just not. And and he found out the hard way. We found out the hard way, the uncomfortable, miserable, hard way for Bryon with a Y, that he's not a Trekkie. But yeah, if you have the clip, let's remind everybody where that started.
Where that started, because it was the beginning of our bromance, and then this is also gonna be a little hint about some of the other stuff we're gonna talk about tonight. So I'm gonna roll the tape. Here we go.
It's tighter than I ever would have thought I would need a seatbelt to be.
Okay.
There's no blood in my legs. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Okay. How you doing, Bryon?
I've had better days. It's not kind of wish I was at work.
Okay. So is your blood rushing to your head?
It's way to my head.
You want to try an inverted turn?
I do not.
You sure?
I do not.
Okay. So first question.
Okay.
To either stay, if you get it wrong, we stay inverted. If you get it correct, we roll upright.
Okay.
What's the difference between VX and VY?
One is VX is best angle of climb, and VY is best rate of climb.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good job, Bryon.
It's never been harder to answer a question in my life.
It's hard to think when you're upside down, isn't it?
Oh, my God.
All right, you ready for another one?
Oh, jeez. You know, it's weird. When we're inverted, I feel like we're going down, even though we're straight and level.
Yeah.
The sight picture inverted is a little different than I'm used to.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. Jesus. Oh, God. Oh, good.
All right. So here we are inverted.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Loving it.
The captain of the Starship Enterprise is Captain James T. Kirk, right?
That's not a question.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Are you agreeing with me?
I know. It's
James T. Kirk is the captain of the Starship Enterprise.
I don't think he was the captain.
Captain James
T.
Kirk.
James T. Kirk
is the captain of the Starship Enterprise.
Yes, okay, he is.
All right. What does the T stand for?
Timothy. Tom. Touch and go. I don't know, man.
I don't hear it. Okay, let's try it. Let's see. You want one more try?
Please, God.
Okay. What is it? By the way, it's Tiberius.
Oh, good.
Okay. In a GUMPS check, what do the letters in a GUMPS check stand for?
Gas, undercarriage mixture, prop. It's gas, undercarriage mixture, prop. I can't remember what the S is for.
Speed.
Speed.
Oh, Jesus.
Can we please go verted? I don't know why that's exhausting.
There's nothing like watching Bryan's content at the beginning of my show. We were I don't know if anyone at home could hear it. We were laughing so hard. And Zach, I agree. Under couch.
Every time I watch that, when I went and pulled that from an archival hard drive, and I watched it again before I sent it to you, I was like, oh my God, it's one of the funniest things I've ever done in an airplane, any airplane. Do you want to know the backstory on that? Do you want to know like why I tortured Bryon so hard?
Well, I mean, because to tee it up though, like the Tiberius thing, that is the origin of the Tiberius. But I'd love to hear the origin of that flight. So
yeah, and I didn't know that Bryon. I just assumed, hey, Bryon works in IT. I figured he must be a Trekkie because all IT people have a predilection for science fiction. Would probably dress up and go to Comic-Con if they could every weekend. And that describes Bryon to a T. So Bryon and I had been planning this for a long time. And he came over, he stayed at my house. We might have had a adult beverage or two the night before while we planned this, and big aspirations for all these maneuvers we were going to do. But anyway, we get in the airplane. And look, before we did the stuff that we wanted to record for Bryon's video, I wanted Bryon to experience some of these maneuvers just so he knows what to expect, so he doesn't get scared or fear or obviously vomit, because that would be horrible. But by the way, if he did, would have been the best video ever. If Bryon vomited while we were inverted, I would have stayed inverted until he was done, and there would have been a puddle up on the canopy. And when he was done, I would have just quickly banged in the ailerons, rolled over, and got that puddle to fall right in his own lap. Would have been the best video
disgusting.
Ever. I know, but that didn't happen. So, missed opportunity. But anyway, in practicing, we flew along inverted, and it turned out Bryon really didn't like being inverted. Like, he hated it. So worse than almost anybody I have ever taken flying. So I thought, okay, when we do this trivia game, I need to find a way to stay inverted as long as possible and torture him for as long as possible. which is why, I obviously gave him some easy questions every pilot should know. I didn't know if he'd know the Tiberius thing, and it was just great that he didn't. So that's kind of the backstory on that video clip. And it turned out to be one of the funniest things I've ever recorded. And I will say Bryon's a good sport for putting up with that. But he asked for it. He honestly asked for it.
No,
all right. Enough about Bryon. We can talk about me now.
Yeah, let's talk about you. I have puked in an airplane going upside down, and I will say that is the worst. This is the literal worst, but you're still in an airplane, so it's relatively still okay, but it is probably the worst.
You know what's worse? You know what's worse than puking in an airplane? Being in the airplane while somebody's puking in the airplane.
Oh yeah, watching someone else puke.
Yeah, catching a whiff of it every so often while you're trying to make a beeline for the airport, not good. A few students have done it here and there, very few. Some just don't feel good and we head back to the airport. Some, they can't help it and out comes lunch or breakfast.
Eat bananas, right? Is that what you hardcore aerobatic people say? Eat bananas? Because it tastes the same going out as it does coming in.
That's not why. It's because they don't smell as bad. I don't give a crap what it tastes like when it comes out of somebody puking in the airplane. Honestly, it just doesn't smell as bad, the bananas don't. Horribly, some people think they're going to cheat the airsick demon by not eating at all. They show up. And we tell people before they come for lessons, eat something, eat a breakfast, don't eat a spicy burrito, but eat something like pancakes or toast. We try not to say something that's good at absorbing stomach acid, but they don't. They think they're cheating it, and they show up and they haven't eaten, and it's just worse because then you've got an empty stomach full of stomach acid, and the G's and the spinning and the yaw, it's not good. Hard to learn when you're sick. When you're
yakking.
Yep.
Okay. But let's talk. We got to talk about you. So far we've talked about Bryon Turner and puke, two things that go together really well.
Hey, two great tastes that taste great together.
It's like orange juice and toothpaste. All right.
Yeah.
But you're kind of a big deal. Like, I'm excited to have you. You're excited to have you in the show. Like, you've done a lot of really cool stuff in airplanes. That's like your thing.
Yeah. I'm just an ordinary person who gets to do extraordinary things. And it's like a drug. Aerobatics is like a drug. And I remember the first time I was in an airplane learning, and then the instructor just did an aileron roll on a decathlon. And something in my brain was like, yeah, that's it. Like, that's the drug right there. Like, get a bunch of that because you need that. And, heroin's just not expensive enough. So aviation is much more expensive. So that's the drug you actually need. The upside down part of aviation. And here we are.
Upside down. And what is interesting to me is because then separately, like and we have a clip here. You sent me another clip here. Let me find it. That's just a black screen. Let me click on some stuff. This is your air show routine. So let's go back to basics. Like, air show pilot for a long time. This is what you're known for, which is also
I'm known for the inverted flat spin. It is to some people. You get used to it. This is how I open every air show, with an inverted flat spin from about 5,000 feet. I spin down at 2,000 feet. This is kind of what it looks like, what it feels like, what my view is from the cockpit, from some of the helmet cam footage. It's a fun maneuver. In short bursts, it's pretty tolerable and exciting and interesting. Some people do it for a long time, like 3 minutes, like me. And I will say it's uncomfortable. You got to push through to set these world records. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
So maybe we should just jump right to it then. So you start there.
Yeah.
And then you decided this was a couple of years ago, right? More than a couple of years ago now.
So this is 2016. This is when I set the 98 turn inverted flat spin record, Yuma, Arizona. So the record I broke was the 81 turn record, which I set. I broke Wayne Handley's record in 2014. This was the second airplane that I used. This is a Pitts S1 single seat with a I-0540 engine. That's a lot of power in a very tiny airplane, but got it up to 24,500 feet. I was able to do 98 spins inverted and easily, I like to say handily, make fun of Wayne. I handily broke my own record by a lot. Now the other one I had started from 23,000 in a Pitts S2B. So that's how much faster this airplane spun. It didn't go that much higher. It spun faster. And I have a third plane now that spins even faster than this. And it's, I've tried to break the record a couple times already. Learn things I needed to improve before I can continue that project. But this is that's frost from me exhaling through my oxygen mask. It's a rebreather bag type mask. It's really just a little patch of basically frozen spit inside the canopy coming out of my mask. When you look at a different view, you realize, oh, it's just a little spot, like maybe that big. There's me starting the maneuver, 24,000 feet, roll inverted, and a couple of views there. And you can see in the upper left, that's just a little spot of exhalation above my nose. And there the spin starts. It's a little wobbly and it stabilizes, and I'm just going to hang there for 3 minutes, inverted, upside down, full power. Right foot holding the right rudder pedal down, right hand holding the stick in the upper right corner, left hand holding the throttle. I'm looking at the exhaust gas temperature, because as you're pretty lean, engine's pretty lean at that altitude. As I'm descending at about, it's 9,500 feet a minute here, the mixture needs to be constantly enriching so the engine doesn't quit. So I'm really just looking at the altimeter, the oil pressure, oil temperature, exhaust gas temperature. Every time the exhaust gas temperature needle comes up a little bit, I just give a few turns on the mixture knob and just kind of hang out, literally, and wait for it to be over. I keep wiggling back down into my seat, well, up into my seat, depending on how you want to look at it, because your body tends to slip a little bit through that.
Okay.
It's a 5-point hooker harness. You got to keep wiggling yourself in. And while you're doing that, you got to make sure your foot's staying on the rudder, your right hand's holding the stick in the corner, you're paying attention to the instrument panel. There's a lot going on.
So if I could ask a question when we watch this, like, to that point, like, how much effort is it to keep the aircraft? Because I think a lot of people think about spins as just something that, like, happens to you, and if you don't know how to recover, you know, when we think of like a traditional spin, like, how much effort is it?
Hold on. Spins do not just happen to you. Pilots cause spins to happen. Do
you see how I teed that up for you?
Yeah, you did a good job on that. We need to rehearse that well. We should spend a little time talking about this, because, you know, have you ever been flying in an airplane that just suddenly decided to stall for no reason? No, of course not. You did something. And same thing with spins. Pilots cause spins. We should spend a little more time talking about that and understand the dynamics of that a little bit. But, you know, it's all about how pilots talk to the airplanes. And some pilots know how to talk to their airplanes and know what their control inputs do. Like, I know that if I hold these control inputs, this airplane will stay in a state. By the way, I'm about coming up on the altitude of the next flash on the screen. I'll tell you I've broken the record. I had to go through this video frame by frame and look at the altimeter and count the turns, and there you go. That's the moment in time when I broke my record. But anyway, enough about me. Let me talk about me some more.
Congratulations. Many years ago.
Many years ago. I'm looking up at my wall, and there's that certificate reminding me what a great day that was. So anyway, back to this idea. I'm doing this to the airplane. This airplane's not locked into a spin. I am talking to the airplane through the flight controls, through the stick, through the rudder pedals, through the throttle lever, through the mixture control. I'm telling the airplane to stay in an inverted flat spin. And when I'm ready to recover, I recover. Airplanes only do what the pilot tells them to do. They don't have a mind of their own. Now, the problem is a lot of pilots don't understand how to talk to their airplane. They don't speak perfect airplane. Some of the things they may tell the pilots to do, they may not realize the outcome. This is how we still have stall spin accidents in the pattern, because pilots don't understand the ramifications of, say, skidding with bottom rudder, pulling back on the yoke because they think the nose is falling towards the ground, and how close they're getting. By the way, that's my crew chief, Carl Ott. He's been helping me do this a long time. He's an awesome friend and an awesome guy to help you do something like this. And he was pretty happy when I did this, because we all worked hard. I can't tell you some of the things he had to do to make me successful, because they're probably illegal and pornographic in some states. But Carl's a great guy. Carl is a great guy. That's Mike Pobolik. He owns Electro Air Ignition Systems. He was there. It was because of the ignition, the electronic ignition, that I was able to get the altitude and the power at altitude out of that engine to make this possible, because you're doing this at full power. A lot going on in the inverted flat spin. But anyway, back to this idea, pilots are in control of their airplanes. You tell your airplane what to do. You have to know how to talk to your airplane. And a lot of pilots don't fully understand how to talk to their airplane and what the results are of some of those things that can happen when they don't fully understand. For instance, let me ask you a question, Ryan. You're a pilot, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Which flight control turns the airplane?
I would say the elevator.
It's because you watched my video.
No, I haven't watched that video. I did that one all on my own.
No, you're right. You're right. It's because what is a turn? A turn is using lift, right? If you got a wing, lift is at a right angle to the wing. Well, if you point the wing in this direction, the airplane's going to go that way. That's why some people think the ailerons banking the airplane are what make it turn. What are the ailerons doing in the turn? You ever looked at your ailerons? Where are the ailerons when you're in a banked turn? They're neutral.
Yeah.
Right? So, but you're putting back pressure on the yoke or the stick. That's what's making the airplane turn. And if you stop doing that, the airplane will stop turning and you'll lose altitude because you will not create enough lift, right? Enough vertical lift or horizontal lift to either turn the airplane or keep it at level altitude. It will descend. And it's just that simple. It really is. I can't tell you how many people argue about that. It's one of the questions I ask students on our first lesson. I teach at Patty Wagstaff Aviation Safety School here in St. Augustine, Florida. We get all kinds of pilots, everything from low time student pilots to high time airline pilots, military pilots. They're coming in to learn aerobatics, to become safer, a lot of corporate pilots. I ask two questions. What makes an airplane stall and spin? The answers I get are really the mechanics of stalling. Well, you see the critical angle of attack and the airflow departs the wing and lack of lift and Bernoulli and Newton and Coanda and all those other things. It's the pilot. Those things are the mechanics of actually stalling the airplane. It's the pilot increasing the angle of attack that makes the airplane stall, or adding rudder, or even not adding rudder necessarily. You can you can spin without adding rudder. If you do a departure stall at full power and you just stall and get your feet off the rudder pedals, you can make an airplane go into a left spin all by itself, just by letting it do it. The plane is, people will say, well, the plane's doing that all by itself. It's like, no, you allowed the airplane to stall. You pulled the nose up high enough, or you over trimmed the airplane. You took your feet off the rudder pedals. You stopped communicating effectively with the airplane, and it is stall and spin because of that. Recovery, unload. The problem is pilots get this, what we call the startle snatch response. They get startled and then snatch the yoke back or snatch the stick back. They make it so much worse. They want to hold the
teddy bear. They're scared. They need the teddy bear. Yeah.
The nose is falling towards the ground. I must pick it up. Well, what that does, right, increases you even more past the critical angle of attack, drives you into the stall spin. That's how the classic stall spin accident happens in the traffic pattern. To this day, people don't. Here, let me ask you another question, or let's throw this one to the chat.
I like it because they have questions for you too. But let's see what they say here.
Can you do more than 30 degrees of bank in the traffic pattern? Are you allowed to do more than 30 degrees of bank in the traffic pattern? Let's see some answers. Yes or no?
So people will see that as it comes up.
Everyone's
they're all Googling it first. Let me throw some comments from the chat while we wait here.
Okay.
Some really, really great comments. I think one, let me find it here. Everyone's complimenting Bryon for being such a good sport.
He is a good sport.
Oh, Nathan was wondering about the spin thing just real quick. Who counts the spins? Was that you, or did they independently validate it? Like, how does that work?
Good question. So it's obviously videotaped. After I land, there are designated. Guinness did not send judges out for this. They don't really understand it. Airplanes. We had designated judge. They required that IAC, so International Aerobatic Club. So judges who would normally judge the sport of aerobatics, who were certified, evaluated it and signed up affidavit form attesting to the number of spins. I had to have two judges, had to submit all the video, raw video, HD video, and the affidavits from the judges, and that's how they adjudicated the count.
Rock on. Ballard's follow-up question was, can you please ask Spencer how many times he could spin the Blue Origin, Bezos's Blue Origin rocket?
You mean that thing that looks like a giant? Never mind.
Yeah.
Looks like the Amazon logo, except it's vertical. What has Bezos got on his mind anyway? you need a few things to spin, right? You need wings, and you need differential lift. You need the wings to be stalled. You need one to be more stalled than the other. You need to create that auto rotation. Rockets don't really spin the way airplanes do. I mean, you can certainly make it rotate, but I think you're doing it from thrust or from vectoring the little fins on the sides of the rocket to make it do that. But hell, I'll try to spin anything. I love spinning airplanes. It's like my favorite thing to do.
Maybe that's what's next. I will say, while we finish up, people get your answer in the chat there. But very early in my pilot training, I did my training in Piper Cubs, and it felt too soon. And we went and did stalls for the first time, which was great. It was fun. And then my instructor flew us over a lake, and he was like, "We're going to do spins now." And I was like, "Oh, why are we over the lake?" He's like, "In case you screw it up, we'll go into the lake." It's like, thanks for the confidence. But it was super fun. Like, it was super fun.
Yeah. And it's docile, right? A spin, a normal spin, you're in the stall, you're at a low airspeed. It's actually a pretty gentle maneuver, right? There's virtually no G's. In fact, if you look at the G meter during a spin, it's usually less than 1 G because you're falling. And the spin rotation, you can look at some of the videos I have. My latest video series on turns, stalls, and spins. I've got a lot of examples of spins and how to aggravate spins and how spins aggravate pilots. But if you really watch it, the spin rate is not that high. They're pretty docile when you do it. Now, there's ways to make them really, intense. You can aggravate them with power and with aileron and unloading the elevator, and you can make them go faster, and you can feel some crazy sideways load and yaw that'll like pin you against the side of the airplane. But a normal upright spin is a pretty gentle, docile thing. It's really nothing to be afraid of. I wish there wasn't a stigma attached to it. I wish more flight instructors would really get comfortable doing it rather than the cursory spin endorsement, let me go do 2 spins with another scared instructor in a Cessna 172. I wish I would get in an airplane like a Decathlon or a Citabria, a Cessna 152, anything that's approved for intentional spins, and really go out and learn to spin and take the fear out of it. Because here's what I tell people when they come for training. The way we teach this today, the way instructors teach us, the way it's taught, it's stall and spin avoidance. They never really let you fully stall. They never really let you get into spins. It's like if I took you to the top of a mountain that had a cliff, Ryan, and I said, I want you to look over there. Over there is the edge of the cliff. Ryan, I want you to run as fast as you can towards the edge of the cliff, but stop before you run off the edge of the cliff. Well, your first question will be, where exactly is the edge of the cliff? And I'd say, well, you can't even go look at it. I only want you to run towards it and stop before you go over the edge. When you feel like you're getting close to it, stop so you don't go off because we're 3,000 feet in the air. That's what we do to people today. And it's if more people would really learn to stall with the yoke back and let the nose drop and unload and really see what happens, how easy it is to recover, I think we'd have a lot less scared pilots.
Well,
That's just my opinion.
When I did my last BFR, I'm going to get the maneuver wrong, where you just keep it stalled, and in like a trainer, it just kind of like keeps, was it a falling leaf?
You did, and use the rudder pedals to control the airplane?
Yeah.
Falling,
keep
that's
that
a
thing
falling
all the way
leaf.
back. Yeah. Super.
Right. I use that as
cool.
we use that as a training technique. So one of the hardest things to do when we train people to really spin airplanes is to use your feet, to really use full rudder pedal. People are not taught to use full rudder pedal, except when they're taxiing on the ground, they need to make a sharp turn. So in the air, you have to get people to wake their feet up. The falling leaf, like you did, is a great maneuver for that, because sometimes you may bank all the way over and you need a lot of rudder. You can't use the ailerons. You need all the rudder to bring and you learn, wow, you can actually at low airspeed, right at the stall buffet, you're flying the stall buffet, the yoke's back. You can just use the rudder pedals. And you can, once you stop, you learn how to use less and less and less and get the plane under control. And you go, wow, I can actually control the airplane with the rudder. It's really a powerful flight control. And at low air speeds, it is the most powerful flight control. And it's a wonderful way to teach people. And you can do that in any airplane. You're not loading it. You can do it in any Cessna, any Piper, or whatever. You don't need an aerobatic plane for that. You just need an instructor willing to go up and show you how to do it, and then you can go do it by yourself, and you will learn so much. You learn more about airplanes at the low end of the speed envelope than, look, anyone can go fast and put in some aileron and roll or pull hard. It takes a little, there's more insights to be gained out of going slow and understanding how an airplane flies at the bottom of the speed envelope.
Thanks for that, Jake. Instructor Jake, who did that with me.
What was it? Oh, good. So did anyone answer about the 30 degrees in the...
Yeah, a lot. I'll just start rattling.
I can't see that. Oh, maybe you're seeing something I'm not seeing. So anybody get the right answer?
I can see the little chat here. So Bryon Turner says yes, but his CFI said no. Clayton Starwalt says yes. Arctic Mayhem says every day.
There you go.
Glenn Towler, yes. Catmandu, yes. That's a new name. Welcome. Canyon K says standard rate. 72 Papa, yes. Let's see. KO says, depends. Can I park in Bryant's parking spot at the FISDO? So mostly yeses, I think.
Okay. So of course you can. There is no rule that says you can't do more than 30 degrees of bank in the pattern. You can legally do up to 60. So there are a couple of FA. Let's just talk about them. There's 91.303. Part of that says if you do more than 60 degrees of bank or 30 degrees of pitch up or down, you need to wear a parachute. That kind of alludes to aerobatic maneuvers. First, you're not allowed to do aerobatics. Aerobatics is very loosely defined in the regs. Mm-hmm. Somewhere it's defined as any maneuver not necessary for normal flight, whatever that means. That's a way for the FAA to give you, infractions, to cite you for an incursion of the rules. You don't want to do more than 60. Here's the thing. The more bank you do and not try to hold altitude, the quicker the airplane descends, right? That's just a fact. So the reason instructors tell students not to do more than 30 or standard rate or whatever nonsense they make up is because they're afraid if you bank too much, you're going to panic, you're going to snatch the yoke back or the stick back, you have a low airspeed, you're going to stall and spin. Well, but the reason a lot of people have these stall spin accidents today, it usually happens in a crosswind, is they go to make the base to final turn, they start to bank, the wind is blowing them off the final heading, and they get to 30 degrees of bank, and they go, uh-oh, my instructor's voice is in the back of my head telling me I can't do more than 30 degrees of bank, and then they start to put in the bottom rudder. They yaw, they skid the airplane, they start yawing it. And visually, right, you look at that, the nose drops towards the ground, so they go, uh-oh, better pick that nose up, and they start to pull back on the yoke. Well, what are you doing? You're setting yourself up for a spin. You're already low, you're slow, you're in a bank. Now, by the way, the other reason people say, well, you can't do more than 30 degrees of bank, because when you do a lot of bank, it increases the load factor on the airplane. That's true if you're trying to hold altitude, but it's not true if you're descending. And what should you be doing in the base to final turn? You should be descending. You shouldn't be holding altitude. So you can do quite a bit of bank. In fact, one of the things I demonstrate with students in our class is we go up and I say, okay, let's hold altitude, do a 45-degree turn, and let's hold it there, keep pulling until it stalls. Well, that's an accelerated stall, right? If the airplane stalls at 60 straight and level, it's going to stall at usually around 70, 72 in a 45-degree bank turn. Now I tell them, let's do the same thing, except don't try to hold altitude. Just keep rolling in the bank. Don't pull back on the stick. Just let the airplane descend. Let's see how much bank we can put in. And we get all the way over, into like 90 degrees of bank, and the airplane is dropping out of the sky like a rock. But you know what? It's not stalling. There's no buffet because we're not trying to hold altitude. We are not loading the wing. And it's a really powerful demonstration of the trade-offs you make when you use more bank and how you lose altitude. So I understand where this fallacy comes from of not using more than 30, but there may be times where you get to 30 and you're not going to make the turn, and maybe 40 degrees or 45 would actually help you make the turn. And if you're not going to do it, then just stop and level the airplane and go around. And, don't try to force it. People try to force it, they put in the bottom rudder, they start skidding, it sets up a whole chain reaction, and it's not that hard to see how stalled. Now, once you start to stall and the nose starts dropping away, what do people do? Startle snatch. Snatch, nose is falling, let me pull it back up, right? Hug the teddy bear, and they just drive it right into the stall spin, and you're at 500 feet and it's game over.
Couple things that made me think of it. One, for folks at home, if you haven't done accelerated stalls, that's also really fun to do. It feels like, for me, it was kind of like, I felt like a fighter, because I did air combat once when I puked in the airplane, and I did stall the airplane kind of like inverted, like heavily banking, whatever what happened, and like just yanked too hard, and you could just feel it break.
That's when you're going to do it. You're like, if you're trying to turn, like, and you put in like 90 degrees of bank, and you go, oh, I'm going to turn, you absolutely will stall the airplane. It's not going to fly like that.
It's just it's like a cool thing. I don't know. Go try it with somebody who's qualified to do that with you. And then the other thing you made me think about was one of my other instructors, Marty, who's probably in the chat. During one of my other BFRs, we did emergency descents, and that was that whole conversation about bank angle versus loading the wing. How do you get it to go down? Whatever. Yeah, it's like all this is super applicable, and it's cool to hear you talk about it, and then for it to like bubble back up into my brain. It makes me feel good about the people I'm choosing to teach me. Thanks, gentlemen.
So what I'm hearing from you is, right, you've had some quality flight instruction. You've experienced, you've seen, you've flown past the edge of what people think is safe and sane, right? You've seen, okay, more bank, you descend quicker. You can use that as a tool if you have to. What is a slip? What do you do when you slip to landing? Well, you put in a bunch of bank, you put in top rudder, and you let the drag of the airplane help it lose altitude quickly. And here's the issue with that. We see this all the time. People get into a forward slip, and then they drop the nose way down to the runway. Oh, better see the runway. And you should be slipping at the same airspeed. If you fly your final approach at 70 knots, well, when you're in your slip, you should still see 70 knots. People get that nose way down. And it may hit, because they're afraid, oh, the nose is up, it's going to stall, it's really scary, something bad's going to happen. Problem is they get down near the runway and they take it all out. It's like stretching a rubber band out, all that pent up energy. You have all that energy in the airplane, it's just ready to go fast except for all the drag you've put on it. And as soon as you take out the slip, it accelerates, and usually you're in ground effect and you just float down the runway. So what was the point of all that slipping, right? And that's another skill that pilots need to become good at and should train at with an instructor and get really comfortable slipping. Same thing slipping in a turn. If you want to do a short final, most pilots are not comfortable slipping in a turn. It's something we teach at our school. How do you slip in it? I mean, we fly aerobatic planes, they don't have flaps. Slipping is just a normal tool of the approach. I like to teach people, we start high and they're like, oh, we're really high. Are we going to get down there? Of course we're going to get down there. Trust me, I'm the instructor. Do what I say. But if you teach people to slip properly, you can learn how to lose altitude without picking up airspeed and get yourself safely down to the runway without doing the amateur thing, which is put the nose down, dive for the people. Oh, I'm just going to dive for the runway. Well, you pick up all this airspeed. Now you get down in ground effect. What do you do with that airspeed? You're not going. You know what you're going to do? You're going to float over the runway until you burn it off. And it's a really bad habit to get into, because what if you someday do this at a short runway, like a 2,000-foot runway in a Cessna? You fly off the end of the runway. So these are things pilots, of course, should become better at doing. And it scares a lot of people, to be honest. I see it all the time. And it's just a matter of doing it with an instructor who can coach you through it and impart the experience on you to improve your skills.
And if you don't do that, you're gonna burn up your brakes. If you ever touch down. Yeah. Or you're gonna force it, right? You're gonna do one of those, like if you're in a nose drag, you're gonna do one of those 3-point landings where you force it down. My A&P told me he's a big fan of doing the 3-point landing in a tricycle gear airplane because it brings a lot of business into a shop. Yeah, it's like a dentist handing out lollipops.
Right. I mean, you may not bend the firewall on the first time you do it, but ask anyone who's been at a flight school any length of time how many of their Cessnas have had to have a firewall replaced, and they'll tell you, like every couple of years, it's 1 or 2 airplanes need a new firewall put in.
No,
the firewall's only a couple $100, right? Only a couple $100 for that firewall. Yeah. It's like $7,000 in labor to take the whole airplane, literally take the drill the rivets out and everything to replace it.
It's a big job. The first airplane that I've got a model. I've looked over here. I've got a model of it over there. The first airplane I was a partner in, that was a thing that happened. Someone did what you're describing. Firewall got bent. Didn't tell anybody about it, and come annual time, everyone's like, hey, it's gonna be a minute before it comes back to you. we gotta drill some rivets. Okay. By the way, everyone in the chat, like, if you have questions for Spencer, I think he'd probably answer them.
Probably
be into it, especially about this stuff about aerobatic upset recovery stuff, which is really interesting. I want to dig through here.
Yeah.
Oh, Bryon says, by the way, that you have semi-perfect hair.
Yeah. You know how hard it is to make it not perfect? You have to have a little bit of flaw in it, because if it's too perfect, it intimidates people.
That's true.
Right. They go, that guy, so look at him, he's perfect. It's intimidating. You gotta show a little bit of flaw on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be exactly. Otherwise,
like, you don't want to go to the best plastic surgeon and have a flawless face. You want to go to a pretty good one. Not like, you want the guy who got like an A- med school, not the guy who got the A+, because you don't want to look too perfect. It looks fake. I mean.
Don't use that advice for other things, though. Like, do go to the best urologist when you're getting things taken care of.
If that part's not working right.
A+. I want the A+ surgeon there. Everyone keeps joking, by the way. Everyone says, I heard that Spencer lost a prop. And I guess they want to hear that story if you want to share it.
Sure. I lost a prop. It was never found. That's it.
It's like, did you check under your bed or?
Yeah, I'll tell you here. So I was on my way to Yuma, Arizona.
Leave them under their bed.
Yeah. No, we don't know where this one is or how many pieces. So I was on my way. It was April of 2019, and there's a story out there you can look up. AOPA did a really good story on it. I mean, every story I'm in is a really good story, but theirs was particularly perfect. And one of their best writers on it. So I was on my way to Yuma to try to break my record again in Spinner 3, which is the third airplane I built, which is a Pitts S1 with a 0360 engine that's been pumped to 248 horsepower. It's insanely crazy engine. There was a vibration. So by the way, there were 18 hours on that engine and prop. I was on my way to Yuma. I was over the valley, San Fernando Valley, Southern California, flying 7,500 feet, knowing the air. No, there's actually a few good lessons here. Knowing the airplane, knowing people build experimental airplanes. People will build a Vans RV, and it's experimental because it's home built, but they'll still build it as if it were certified. They'll put a normal, 180 horse 360 engine in it,
sure.
360 engine, and there's nothing extreme about it. It just happens to not be factory built. And then there's, what I'm doing with my airplane, which is I'm, literally experimenting with extreme ways of getting more horsepower, because the airframe itself, it's an experimental airplane, someone built it. But what I'm experimenting with is a high horsepower, high compression engine to get more power at altitude. So I'm on the edge, right? I'm pushing the envelope. And there's some unknowns when you do things. Now, by the way, this engine, it's 12.5 to 1 compression pistons. And if you know anything about high compression.
That you answered. I was going to say that means something. Sounds like
a lot. So your normal,
like
your typical Cessna, with a 0360 engine, it's usually about 8.5 to 1 compression.
Okay.
My airplane's 12.5 to 1. It's
Okay.
11. The knob's turned up to 11, maybe 12. Right?
To 12.
So
all right.
Right now, it's the same kind of engine, a very similar engine to what they use when they race at Reno in the pits in the biplanes. It's that kind of engine. So that's a known quantity. But when you put an engine and a prop together that are not tested like you would in a certified airplane, you may have unexpected outcomes. One of the results of a high compression engine is a high combustion impulse. So every time the air fuel mixture explodes in an engine with that much power, it really hits hard. And in a 4-cylinder engine, that sets up a vibration, a harmonic vibration that is going to focus somewhere. Something is going to be affected by that vibration. In this case, it ended up being, we think, the prop hub. The prop I had was a fixed pitch ground adjustable prop, carbon fiber blades clamped in an aluminum hub. You can adjust it on the ground for pitch. So what we think was happening is the aluminum hub was cracking from the vibration, And you could tell it was because on the front of the crank flange, they call it fretting or rubbing material. No, it wasn't rubbing like when I used to pull the airplane out of the hangar by the prop. It wasn't loose or anything. In fact, those bolts had been retorqued 3 times, 18 hours on the whole system. It was cracking. And on this particular flight, I felt a vibration. What's that? Well, the only thing I have is throttle. At first I thought maybe it's the rudder pedals. Maybe I'm a little lazy in my cross-country flight. I was playing with the rudders. Nope, not that. Must be throttle. And it's a fixed pitch prop, so that's all you got. Pull it back a bit. Vibration goes away. Add it back in. Higher RPM. Okay, this is RPM related. At this point, I'm over the 5 and 118 highway, freeways, if you're familiar with that part of California, just north of Van Nuys, a few miles north of Van Nuys. I've got Van Nuys about 5 miles off my right, got Whiteman Airport about 2.5 miles off my left wing, Burbank's about 7 miles at my 2 o'clock. I start thinking, well, I was going to go to Palm Springs to that or thermal airport and get fuel. I thought, I can make it to there. Maybe I'll just stop at Palm Springs, a lot of FBOs, get someone to look at it. So now I'm flying with a little bit of reduced RPM and the vibration comes back. I'm like, So I'm start pulling it back, put it in. Okay, now I can't get the RPM as high as it was before without the vibration coming back. I kid you not, Ryan, about the moment I was going to key the mic and tell SoCal approach, I'm going to divert to Van Nuys. I hear a noise. I hear tink, prop's gone. Engine races a little bit. I pull the throttle back, just have it, push the nose down, and I key the mic. I was already on the frequency for ATC, and I tell them I have an emergency. You can hear the audio. If you look up one of the articles, I think I sent you a link to an article. You can post it here.
Sure. Or
if you just go on AOPA, Google, Spencer Suderman propless pits, you can find an article. There's a link to the audio. I just called up SoCal Approach and said, SoCal Approach, pit 781. My props departed. I'm going to make an emergency landing at Whiteman Airport, and I asked for the wind direction, and that was it. So a couple things. I landed, and you can see the GPS track, and I had a circle, and there's a lot of information in this story, but the short part of the quick end of it is I landed safely, and the plane's since been repaired, and I'm going to go fly it again. But a couple lessons to take away from that. One is know your airplane. Don't fly low. I was at 7,500 feet, knowing I'm in an experimental airplane that could have an issue. I want altitude and time to think about what am I going to do in an emergency. Always talk to flight following. There is no reason not to talk to flight following. I was on the ground 2.5 minutes after the prop came off. I would have had no time. If I wasn't on frequency talking to them, SoCal Approach, I would have had no time to fumble around. I don't have paper charts in the airplane. I had a GPS, a Garmin GPS. When I start pushing buttons and looking for the frequency of, the nearest, it's not going to work. And you're going to be busy flying the airplane. Talk to SoCal, have altitude. And I was also, I flight planned it to fly over as many airports as possible. Again, knowing what I'm flying and the risk, I'm doing everything I can to mitigate the risk. So I'm flying high, talking to flight following, and I'm trying to fly over as many airports as possible. And, it worked. Luckily, the prop came off. I was near an airport that was 2.5 miles away, 6,500 feet above it, and I was able to land. And that was it. And that's the takeaway is, I don't know why people fly too low. I don't know why people are willing to take trips and not talk to flight following. And I don't know why people are willing to flight plan and be, really far away from an airport. Do those three things and you've mitigated your risk. You increased your chances of surviving an emergency in flight. And that's really my advice on that. The rest is history. Here I am.
I have an observation and a follow-up question. The observation is, I think I get why people fly low.
That's pretty. You want to see the pretty sights.
Like I get it.
You're hoping, yeah.
Some of my favorite flying memories are like the low things, but it's a without getting into like a big discussion about risk or whatever, like risk mitigation. It's like an accepted risk. Doing these things to mitigate the risk in the low flight, whatever. Maybe you're in a slower airplane, things like that, right? There's like all these things combined. I'm not an instructor. Don't go do it. Don't get in trouble and say, I saw Ryan on SuperAero said it's fun to fly low. I'm just saying I get why people do it.
Right. Right. It's risky, and a pit needs some space to land. It's not like a Cub. You're not going to land it,
right.
Like on a softball field and be stopped before you reach the pitcher's mound. You're going to need a little bit of space to do it. So, landing on a road is landing in most tail draggers, not on concrete, is a bad idea. They tend to flip over, especially around farms and things. It's very common. So give yourself room, try to be over roads if you can. You got to think about all these risk mitigation tactics.
The follow-up question was, and I just realized I cut my finger with a pair of scissors today, like really good. And I just realized I'm using this finger to gesticulate, and it must look just absurd on the stream. It's just a Band-Aid. Anyway,
at least it's not the finger next to it.
Yeah, right. That bled a lot. Okay, anyway, so the follow-up question is, what does that do? So the prop departs, that's a chunk of metal out on an extreme point of the aircraft in terms of CG. Like, what does that do to your controllability? Like, what's that experience like? Did it change anything?
Good question. So you know how tiny a single seat Pitts is? You've probably seen one up close. Yeah, it's a little airplane. That particular prop only weighed 17 pounds. It was mostly carbon fiber. So it didn't change the CG much, but I wasn't about to find out what best glide was like, because knowing I lost weight off the nose, as soon as the prop came off, I instinctively pushed the nose down to maintain airspeed. There's no way, like I said, I wasn't going to test slow flight and extended glide. I was near an airport. I was confident I could make the airport. I know the airplane well. So it's hard to say. I will say it probably glided better without the prop, because the prop is drag, especially a prop that's not, it's not spinning. It's a big piece of drag. So it probably went a lot further than a Pitts with a prop on it would go. So I didn't notice much change in the way the airplane flew. Now, had it been a heavier prop, a larger airplane, with a 60 or 70 pound prop, probably would have felt something, maybe more control stick pressure. But, a Pitts is such a nimble little airplane that you hardly ever even touch the trim when you're flying. It's just so easy to, push the stick and move it around. That trim is like, if it's out of trim, so what? It doesn't really bother you. So I didn't notice a difference. But again, I wasn't about to find out either. Gotcha.
That makes sense. We're almost out of time.
We are.
This has been really, and I think some friends of ours were expecting us to just BS and not get anywhere. But I want to thank you for all the functional, real knowledge you've dropped on the stream this week. That's all really important, really useful stuff. I have one more question.
That's my job. I mean, as a flight instructor, that's my duty, right? My duty is to help pilots. I don't teach people how to fly. I teach pilots how to be safer. So here, maybe it's a good time. So, if you want to fly with me and experience some of these things and improve yourself, come out to St. Augustine, to Patty Wagstaff Aviation Safety School. There's a link down below. You can come to my YouTube channel. There's a link there. My latest video series is on turns, stalls, and spins. And I show you in an extra 300 some of these things that you would actually do in our program, but also just demonstrate, why is it so important, for instance, to use the PARE, P-A-R-E, recovery method in a spin? What do the flight controls do to aggravate it? I've got a few more videos that are coming out in the next couple of weeks around, everybody wants to see snap rolls. Well, a snap roll is just a spin. I think it's going to blow people's mind when they realize a snap roll doesn't even involve the ailerons. It's no different than a spin. You're just doing it at a high speed. It's basically an accelerated stall and stomp in the rudder, and there you go. So I'm going to show some additional things. We're going to do the impossible turn. I'm going to demonstrate the impossible turn, not in a low altitude environment. I'm going to show what kind of altitude you can use. Let's think about, is the impossible turn ever a good idea? Maybe. It depends. How well do you know your airplane? How much altitude do you have? So some interesting things coming up. And I think pilots need to be better. They always need to be challenging themselves to become better pilots. So anyway, go look that up, go check out those videos, and then come to St. Augustine and fly with us. Fly with me, fly with Patty, fly with our other instructors. You'll have a great time. Bryon did. He had a great time. Bryon with a Y had a wonderful time.
Other than those moments, he was very, very uncomfortable.
Which was 50% of it, by the way.
Like about half of it. In the chat, Wolficorn just showed up in the chat, and he says, it's been a while since he got a ride in your pits, and that you landed at his home airport when the front fell off.
That at Whiteman Airport?
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I had one other question for you real quick before.
Sure.
We're going to play a game in a second. But I had just in terms of, you gave a lot of really great advice, like piloting advice, but I'm wondering about, and this maybe we're going to have to go into a second whole hour. I'm worried I'm going to uncork you here. But like, just
if you want like sex advice, yeah, we're going to go all night.
Yeah, let's do it. No, so my question for advice, like for pilots watching this, we've got a lot of student pilots in the chat, right? You talked a lot about things that they should be asking their instructors about. But for folks who want to kind of follow in your footsteps in terms of aerobatics, right? Like you've got this amazing career in aerobatics. What advice would you have for people who want to get started in that realm of flight?
Good question. It always starts. So here's how I'll tell you how I started, and I didn't do anything extraordinary. I was a regular old Cessna pilot, like a lot of people, working on my instrument rating. This was back in like 1999, and I lived in California. I lived not too far from Santa Paula, where the famous CP Aviation is, and they had an instructor named Rich Stoll, who's probably trained more people in spin recoveries than most. Anyway, I was working on my instrument rating. I thought, I should probably do one of these spin training prevention classes, because I think it would just be good for me to know what if I ever, because I didn't understand it. Like most people, I just didn't understand. But what if I get into a spin? How do I recover? Right. Now I know I know how to avoid it. I understand it doesn't happen by accident, but I didn't know that at the time. Called him up and said, I want to do your course. And because I live nearby, I didn't, a lot of people will fly in and do it, travel from wherever and spend a week and go through the whole syllabus. They said, hey, if you live local, we could probably get you in, because a lot of times you book these instructors who do this are booked months ahead. So they said, if you've got flexibility, we always have people who cancel. We could probably, get you in quicker. You might, fly a weekend, not fly, but we'll get you through. I said, yeah, good with me. So I did a course. It was in a super decathlon. It's one of the most common aerobatic trainers. We learned rolls and stalls and spins and how to get into them, out of them, how to recover, how to do, and let's not confuse aerobatics, which is really learning aerobatics to become good at aerobatics, with upset prevention and recovery, which uses aerobatics as training simulations. So you're not really learning aerobatics to learn how to do them, perfectly and with precision. You're learning like basic rolling type maneuvers to understand, like, how do you develop situational awareness, like when you're upside down, to roll the airplane right side up. Anybody can do this. There's a few flight schools around the country that do it. Find one and start training. Do not get in an airplane and try to figure this out. Don't watch my, I may be a flight instructor, but if you're watching my video, I am not your flight instructor unless you're in the airplane with me. So go find a qualified instructor with the proper airplane. Don't go figure out barrel rolls by yourself. Get instruction in the right kind of airplane, because mistakes happen and you might over-G the plane. Learn to do it properly, and anyone can do this. It's, there's nothing superhuman about becoming an aerobatic pilot. It's like any other part of flying. You get training, you practice, you get better at it, you advance, then you move on to more powerful airplanes with more capability, like faster roll rates, and you start enjoying it and have fun, or you don't. Some people never will enjoy it, and they do spin training and they never want to do it again, and that's fine for them. But it's something even if you take a spin training class or program, you should repeat it maybe once a year. In fact, do your flight review there. We get people who come every 2 years and they do their flight review with us, and we refresh the course for them. So it really makes you a more comfortable pilot. And I've seen it in people. I've seen people come in and just be shaking in the airplane the first time we stall or we spin. And after a couple of flights, they're like, more and more and more. Let's do more. I want to do one more spin before we go back to the airport. It's really great to see people relax and embrace it and enjoy it and understand flying more and what flight control turns the airplane.
Awesome. Well, I got to come down and it's been a while since I've been to St. Augustine, so
Yeah.
I'll come down.
Come on down and visit. You know where I'll show you the famous seat where Bryon sat, and you can sit in that same seat.
I will hurl though, man. You're gonna do the puke drop on me. The Tiberius puke drop. Can you invent an air show maneuver called the Tiberius puke drop? It just do.
You know, I'm gonna tell you a secret about air show maneuvers. A maneuver is whatever the announcer tells the crowd it is. There's really not that many aerobatic maneuvers, right? There's a few basic things. We put them together in combinations. But really, if you listen to the announcer, air show pilots are supermen. They do these amazing things. It's like they have a switch. They turn physics off in their airplane.
Are they Supermen or Suderman?
They're Suderman. You know, you can tell your friends you know a guy who flies named Suderman.
Yeah, that's good. So I do a little bit of air show announcing. I should just start inventing names for things. When
Here's
I
the
see
thing.
it's the
pilot in the plane can't hear you, right?
That's
They're not
right.
listening. They can't hear you. The crowd doesn't know what they're looking at. So whatever you tell people it is, that's what it is. You can, you will make stuff up and people go, wow, did you see that half, double, triple, reverse, lunging
sow cow
flip-de-doo the guy did? It was amazing. And he probably just did a roll.
The flip-de-doo. I like that. I just mostly do landing competitions, so there's not a lot. I can't riff on that as much. But anyway, can we play a game? You want to play a game real quick before you go?
I love games. Is this going to be like inverted trivia?
Yeah, but there's no risk. There's no real penalty.
There's
no trivia. There's no right answers. There's no wrong answers. It's literally.
I mean, if you don't need a fireproof suit, a helmet, and a parachute, what's the point of doing it?
Okay, well, we can just sign off for the night. That's fine too.
No, let's do it. Come on, let's do it. Let's play the game. Let's play the game.
All right, this is short final. So we just got a bunch of random questions we're going to ask. Bryon told me he was going to send me a bunch of really embarrassing ones for you, but he didn't text me anything, so we're just going to go with the standard bunch.
Of course he did. He's all talk, no action.
Bryon, you can text me real quick if you got a good one, since you guys go way back. Anyway, minute on the clock. We'll just pound through some airplane stuff.
Let's go.
And it'll be great. I got to remember to hit the timer this week. Oh, that's the wrong music. There we go. Ooh, dramatic. All right, Spencer Suderman. It's time for short final. First, let's get the most contested one out of the way. North up or track up?
Track up. Come on.
What about, okay, you've flown in a lot of different aerobatic aircraft. Which one's your favorite?
They're all my favorite. I love them all because they're all different and they all serve a unique purpose. You can't say an extra is better than a pitch. They're different airplanes for different purposes. I love them all. Very
diplomatic of you. What about the favorite airport you've ever landed at?
I love military airports. I landed at Fallon, did an air show there. They have 14,000-foot runways. It was amazing.
That sounds awesome.
You can do that's a whole cross country right there on one runway.
Yeah, right? What about your favorite passenger you've ever had in your airplane?
Oh, gosh. That's a tough one. There was this naked girl. Now let's not talk about her.
I've heard that story. Okay, other than the spins thing, craziest thing you've ever done in an airplane?
That goes back to what we were wearing.
Got it. Moving on. Family show.
Yep.
You did it!
All right. I can't believe I made it all the way to the end. I didn't hurl on myself.
All the way to the end.
By the way, Ryan, we tell people if you're going to use the bag, and we use gallon-sized Ziploc bags as sick bags in our airplanes. If you're going to use the bag, you're not a man unless you fill it.
Well, I will tell you then that I'm double the man because they weren't gallon-sized, but my flight, my combat flight, I filled 2 bags.
Wow.
Yeah. The coolest part of this, because science, I'll tell you, was that I filled the second bag. The instructor was a former F-18 squadron commander, and he's like, you filled another one, huh? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, all right, let's go back upside down. So I'm upside, we're all over the sky, whatever. And I look down at my feet, and there they are, just hanging out on the floor, even though we're upside down because of how...
G-forces.
Science.
That's like the picture you used, right? That's a frame grab from a video where I was doing the barrel roll and pouring water. But you look at the video and it's kind of in context and you go, oh, okay. You look at the picture and people go like, no way. How can you be pouring water upside down?
Probably dark magic.
It's physics, yeah. You know, it's all about physics. Newton, Apple.
All right, so everyone go to St. Augustine, fly with Spencer, fly at the Patty School, learn yourself some aerobatics, some upset recovery,
some airmanship. Learn yourself some better airmanship. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, awesome, dude. I can't thank you enough for being on the show this week. It was such a pleasure, and I learned a lot.
Well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this. I love chatting with you. I love seeing the questions from people and answering them. The Tiberius thing is it's going to live on forever in infamy, and I know where it all started, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, that's good. Like the internet, it's nice to have little internet things, and I think that might be one of my top moments of the past year, was just like going back and watching like this sheer confusion on my face. Just being like, I don't know what is happening. Anyway. All right, let's wrap it up. Spencer, thank you so much. Everybody else at home, thank you so much for watching. We talk a lot about, I mean it every week. So highlight of my week, hanging out with all of you Av Geeks at home. And be sure to tune in next week. Gonna have another awesome show. Probably more bush flying. It's like everyone's bush. It's like really hot right now. You guys keep asking for it, so we keep doing it. Maybe what we need to do is
who doesn't like bush?
Yeah, dang! I thought we were gonna make it through without a raunchy joke from you. We did it. You snuck one in at the end. All right, everybody, have a great week. Fly safe. We'll see you next week on SuperAero Live.